Okay, so if you could just say your name, your title, the agency that you're with, and if you want a fun anecdote about yourself. So Ram is not here, so Bob Berry.
Hi, Bob Berry. I'm the IT manager of the Database Services Group within DAS BITS.
Lindsay?
Morning, everyone. Lindsay Boudreau. I'm the data project manager and business analyst at the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness.
Patrick?
I'm Patrick Flaherty. I'm the Director of Research here at the Department of Labor. We are also the data integration hub for P20 Win.
Ajit?
Ajit Gopalakrishnan, Chief Performance Officer at the Department of Education. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Is Lauren here? No. Jan is also absent. Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Leventhal-Weiner. I'm the Chief Research and Planning Officer at the Office of Early Childhood. No one took Katie's fun anecdote bait, which is unfortunate because we could have gotten a little crazy in here. So I'll just say that my special talent is running virtual meetings. I especially like running the virtual introductions and was told this week by our commissioner that that I have a future in public radio.
Oh, there you go.
I can deal with a lot of uncertain, awkward silence.
Yeah.
So Fred is next. He's been to a couple of meetings, but now he's our official DCF rep.
Yep, Fred North, Department of Children and Families, Director for Data Reporting and Evaluation. It's great to be here.
Maura?
Maura Preventure with the Connecticut Conference of Independent Colleges.
And then Paul Schmitz is brand new to us from the Coalition to End Homelessness. So welcome.
Thanks. Paul Schmitz, new Director of HMIS and Strategic Analysis with CCEH. I come from All Chicago. In the city of Chicago, we were the HMIS lead and the COC lead. I was the HMIS administrator there, covered training, HMIS, reporting, everything essentially that is involved around HMIS. So it's nice to meet everyone, and I will do my best to remember everybody's name.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Susan?
Good morning, folks. I'm Susan Smith. I'm the Director of Business Intelligence and Analytics for the Department of Social Services. So, Rachel, I'll give my little anecdote is that for folks who are like a million years old, like I am, may remember Romper Room, and I crashed an episode of Romper Room when I was 2. So wow. I don't know I don't if they still have the footage.
That's an awesome fun fact.
I do remember seeing myself on television, and how it happened was that my brother was on Romper Room, and because I just could not understand why I was not out there with the rest of the kids, they were just like, just let her go, just let her get on. So I crashed that Romper Room.
That is excellent.
That's awesome.
I didn't get a SAG card or anything like that, so
that makes my day.
So
in Philly, we had a version of that TV show. It was like a talent showcase called Al Albert's Showcase, and it was always my dream, Susan. But alas, never made it.
And then we have a couple guests with us. So Lori.
Hi, Lori Colburn with the Department of Labor. I'm the Director of the Performance and Accountability Unit.
And Kate.
Hi, Kate Eichel. I'm with the Hartford Data Collaborative, and which is also part of Connecticut Data Collaborative. I don't think I can top Susan's anecdote, but I was trying to remember, was Romper Room the one with the mirror that could see you? Where he's like, I can see the audience. That was always the show that kind of creeped me out as a kid. So not an anecdote, but just trying to remember back in those days. Anyway, thank you for letting me.
It might well have been. Mr. Rogers and all those, and I was also went to Mr. Rogers live taping as well. So my mom had us on the circuit, so
You have my brain like
And
remembering all that.
Wonderama. So Wonderama, Mr. Rogers, and Romper Room were the three places that my mom took us to tapings. So just so you know.
That's so
That's
My
awesome.
so
parents.
cool.
Actually.
That's really cool. Anyway, nice to be here, and I'm glad to meet some new places. We're trying to connect with some state partners on things too. So thank you for letting me come and listen.
Definitely. It's really hard to transition from these great anecdotes to the agenda now. So this was great. So the first item on the agenda is the IT optimization. Bob here is going to give us a quick overview on what it is and what is happening. And so I guess, Scott, if
Actually,
you want to, yeah, sorry.
Can I'll share the screen. Is that all right? Just because I made some changes to spelling and I noticed some of the things spelled wrong on the one I sent you. So.
All right, go for it. It works.
Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So I started at the state 3 years ago, and about 5 months in, we started this project called IT optimization. So this is what it is. Basically, it's pulling all the IT information from across the state of Connecticut and centralizing it so that we can be more focused and actually more efficient to go through. So, and by doing that, we can, improve all the services, because now we'll be more focused. We'll have more people to handle those things going forward. And one of the main drivers for that was the new contract, the union contract that was expiring this spring, and the anticipation of a lot of retirements. And I was just on a call with our commissioner, and they mentioned that they've had 700 retirements so far this year. 7 with 2 zeros at the bottom back. And I know just within DAS alone, we have 80 that have retired. A lot of those being in IT. So we needed something to try to pool resources together to do that. So that was a major driver of it. As part of this, Mark Raymond hired what we're calling a culture consultant, Barbara Irish. And I have to admit, I'm more the type of person who let's put a stake in the ground and strive to that. And, what we don't make, we'll just keep pushing forward. I learned a lot from Mark Raymond because he basically took a very methodical and deliberate approach, which I found is really the only way he could have made this happen. So good thing for me. I continue to learn as old as I am. I'm even older than Romper Room. So, and so that will take care of the retirement. But one of the things that, a lot of surveys were run, a lot of discussions with people were run, a lot of focus groups. And one of the complaints was people felt that there wasn't a lot of focus on the employees. And so what our plans are to build something where we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. But part of that, you got to take care of your people. So we've started building career growth plans and doing a lot more coaching with folks. They've brought on LinkedIn Learning, and we've been bringing in some training courses so people can get deeper into their technologies and understand that. And it's all part of that. During the pandemic, which everybody knows, we had to move a lot of people from the office to home, and we learned a lot by doing that. So from everything we do, it's basically modifying as we move forward. Because as we find out, geez, this didn't quite work the way we wanted to, it's always a continuous improvement environment that we're trying to create here. So based on that, our focus is really to try to look at, you know, focusing in on specific technologies. You know, I think right now my team, which, you know, currently is at 5 people, we support 7 different database technologies in over 5,000 databases. So you can imagine we're not doing a lot of proactive work at this point. It's really just trying to keep afloat. With the optimization, I'll go from 5 to 20 people. So we've already started to have some meetings with the people that will be coming in, and we're building standards and looking at how we can, you know, make things much more efficient. So part of that, me being in charge of the database group, we'll have those resources now to look forward rather than just trying to keep our heads above water, to make data something that we can use quite a bit much more for making decisions and a value proposition. And then there are a lot of people who still are on a 35-hour work week. As we merge things together and we're able to, you know, perhaps drop some of the consulting contracts and stuff, those monies we would look to try to bring people to 40-hour work week. And I'll talk to the next slide. So here's the why. You know, as Governor Lamont mentioned that he wanted us, you know, to be much more streamlined with IT, because, you know, make it easier for the public to do things. So you probably heard of Business One Stop. That was a website that was developed and created, and it continues to be enhanced going forward to allow people to one-stop shopping and, you know, figure out how to open up businesses, and it would walk them through the whole process. So as I'd mentioned, you know, with a larger group, the resources will now be focused on giving solutions rather than just trying to keep our heads above water and handling tickets, stuff like that. What we've noticed too is when I first got here, I was quite surprised that there were a lot of single points of failure. You know, one individual who knew a technology and was supporting that technology. So when they went on vacation, they weren't really on vacation because if something went wrong, they had to get called. So what we're able to do here now is bring more people, cross-train people, so there is backup to do that. And you know, the focus again would be to try to consolidate technologies. So, you know, we have more people focusing on less technologies so that, you know, we can get deep knowledge and handle things much, much quicker. And then we've already found this, everybody does things a little bit differently in different agencies and stuff, but you know, some are really great ideas that can be used elsewhere. And I've been having staff meetings with all the agency DBAs, even though they're not directly reporting to me. We just take an hour every other week, and it's been great data sharing, pun intended, with all the DBAs, trading off ideas on how to handle different issues and stuff like that. So bringing all that together is going to be much more helpful. And then, as I had mentioned, we're really just trying to keep our heads above water at this point. So as we build this out, the plan is to become much more proactive. increase our automation. So as part of our monitoring and alerting, we can even have self-healing. So based on certain situations, instead of calling somebody out or trying to get a hold of somebody to fix something, we would have automation to get that fixed. So those are all the plans. And in my mind, I came from a private industry where IT was centralized, and I didn't realize there was any place, that wasn't centralized anymore. So this just seemed natural to me. And then here's the org chart. Mark Raymond being the CIO. They have Ryan Kasandi, who's the Connecticut Education Network Director. Deb Sengupta, he's Director of our architecture. Doug Casey is the, helps with all the education, which I'm sure you folks from education are familiar with Doug. Jeff Brown is our CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer. Dave Labadia, who was going to try to make it today, but he's got business, but he's in charge of basically application development and operations. So it's called Agency Business Services. So his group would be the one that most of the agencies will be dealing directly with. Mark Oldenburg is Director of Workforce Enablement, which basically is all personal devices, desktop, laptop, cell phones, phones on your desk, anything to do with that. So I mentioned before, Barbara Irish is their workforce development. So besides helping with change the culture, they are developing a career development path and working with all the managers on doing that. They've had management development courses to help some of the managers learn how to coach and stuff. Kevin Gravel, who is my boss of Compute Services, that's basically what you can consider is all the operating systems, the servers, the storage, the basis that the applications sit on. And then John Walshaw is Director of Infrastructure Services. That's really the people who take care of the data center and all networking, firewalls, VPN, that whole deal. And then Joe Stanford, Director of Customer Success. They are, particularly for the larger agencies, they are hiring people to just be the liaison with all the agencies. So you really have one person to focus on all your initiatives that they would be able to help get through. So you don't have to try to figure out who's who. So I'm going to pause there and see if there's any questions.
Hey, Bob, thanks for going through this. I just wanted to add one thing to kind of motivate the discussion and get questions from folks. One of the reasons for bringing this up, I think, was this was originally going to be on the agenda for the executive board meeting last week or next week, although we had to postpone it. But when at the last board meeting, this is a topic that we were hoping to cover, ran out of time. There was a lot of interest, and then in the outreach to the individual agency leadership, I think kind of across the board, they expressed varying degrees of interest in IT optimization and really thinking about like what are the ways in which this can improve or provide support to the work that we're doing through P20. So just for the motivation, sorry, I wanted to provide that. Rachel, I see you have your hand up, so I'll call on you because I'm unmuted.
So thanks so much for your presentation, Bob. I think there's a few of us in this group that either intentionally or accidentally were engaged in IT optimization. I was our interim IT manager from 2020 into very late 2021. So I was able to ride along for a lot of the process, and it's really exciting to see how much has changed. This is a big endeavor, and it's a long rollout. There's a long tail here. I'm curious, though, early on in the process, there was a vertical on this org chart called data innovation. and it sort of like very slowly disappeared over time. And I think that like Scott got involved in the meetings to listen in on how the process was going and the role of data in the technology kind of space. I'm just curious to know how the leadership team is thinking about that role, what happened to it, or how the leadership team is thinking about working with Scott and the folks in this group here.
Yeah, so actually that would fall in my realm. I have the data services team, and that's in fact, we just had a staff meeting yesterday where we do want to talk about data warehousing, data marts, data lakes, you know, the whole thing. We're not really doing that today, and we don't have the expertise yet. I mean, there's a few people who know that, but that's something we're going to need to build over the time. And you know, the bonus that I've seen here is, like I said before, with 5 people and everything that we were supporting, literally we did not have time to do any strategizing. You know, it was just keeping our heads above water and trying to keep the ticket queue under control. But I've already seen huge inroads because I do have one-on-ones with everybody, even the people who aren't directly reporting to me now. And, you know, those that say, hey, geez, you know, I got a couple hours here and there, they've already been helping out other agencies. So we're able to take expertise and move it around. So the plan is that we want to grow where we are today and get into that that mode to find out how best to use data across the state of Connecticut. So, but we're not there yet, and we won't be real soon. But that is a plan going down the road.
Thank you.
I see Ajit has his hand up.
Hey, Bob, thank you for jumping. I can't tell you how useful this consolidation or centralization or collaboration has been, because we can't do it alone. We need a central entity with systems, with processes, controls, and frankly, for the people in my shop who are basically siloed in our little world, it puts them together with other people who do very similar things so that they can actually contribute, not only hone their skills, get into newer technologies, but also contribute to sort of shaping the bigger picture of where our state goes. So thank you so much for leading that. My question is, from the agency's side, I'm still trying to like figure out like how we interface with BITS as an agency. So what I mean by that is, you know, there is this notion of a customer success manager. You know, there is also this, I mean, you have these 6 divisions, if you will, at the high level. And I know different people have been assigned the different units, and they have reporting structures, meaning, you know, hierarchical, like my boss is X, you know, he's going to do my thing. But I know you're not just hierarchical, because there's a lot of cross things that are going on. So from the agency's perspective, who are we going to talk to? Is it the customer success manager? I mean, I'd love to have one person who I go to at BITS who addresses my agency's needs, so that I don't have to go to, like, you know, one of my guys is working under Labadia, so I don't want to go there for something, and then I don't want to go to somebody else for something. Like, how are we going to interact with BITS?
Right. Yeah. So that was the plan, was that it would be through the customer success liaison that's assigned to your group, because, like you mentioned, is we're trying to break down a lot of these silos. So as a matter of fact, I had on site with my entire soon-to-be staff, and we combined it with our mainframe services staff, because we work so closely. You know, certain people work so closely, and we kind of brought those together. We have plans to do it with platform services. So you're right. It would be difficult for you to try to navigate through that type of organization. So that's why the customer success group was created, to eliminate that need for you to try to navigate through such a large environment.
Okay, so our point of entry is the customer success manager, basically.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's great. That's helpful.
Yeah.
And whether we need infrastructure services, Linux OS upgrades, or some new application development, doesn't matter what we need from BITS, we'd start with the customer success person.
Correct.
Manager.
Correct.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's
Perfect.
Now, again, you know, we're building strategies and stuff, and what we would like to do, although we're probably a couple years from this, is even create a service portal. So if you wanted a, you know, Windows server built with a SQL server on it and you know, 50 gig of storage or something like that, you'll be able to go out, plug that in, and within, you know, a half hour or an hour or something, it's built automatically for you. We did that in, you know, at my last place where I worked, and it was particularly for those wanting to do POCs. You know, they didn't have to go through this project or anything like that. They were able to create something very quickly. You know, to go through. So yes, customer service or success person is your liaison in, but we're looking to get even better there, because as you can imagine, if you have hundreds of requests, you're probably overwhelmed at one person.
Right. Yeah, I think it would also be helpful, Bob, as you're sort of establishing your culture in the new organization and you have BITS, is to sort of help the agencies figure out how we should be organized and interfacing with the new entity. Because I think what you may not want is 10 different people from an agency hitting your customer success manager saying, hey, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. I don't know if that's what you want, or whether you want a central point of contact at each of the agencies, so that, you know, that might be good practice for the agency, so that there is coherence and sort of planning at our level, so that, you know, one unit isn't like going off in a different direction and building a solution that totally doesn't align with how our customers interact with us. So because we want to have a, you know, a coherent solution. So I think it might be good to sort of advise agencies, you know, you don't want to be uber customer responsive right at the outset, because sometimes you may end up going off in directions that sort of fracture how the agency is set up. So I don't know. It might be interesting to just think that through. But
sure, no,
really
that's
appreciate the help.
Yeah, great suggestion. I will bring that up to. I work a lot with Angela Tates, and I could bring that up to her. That may be something they're already thinking about. I don't know, but it's a good suggestion. So thanks.
So we'll do one more question from Scott, and then we will move on to the rest of the agenda.
Katie, this is maybe just to confirm sort of something that builds on Ajit's question and I think Rachel's question. The way I think of it, Bob, is that you're sort of the CSM for P20 Win. I think one thing that, you know, we found in the last year or so is like it's a cross-agency effort. It's not a single agency. It's not sort of a project of an agency, and it has we have technology needs, but we don't have really sort of dedicated technology resources, and we wanted to like build a specific direct bridge to at that time what was best, and now it's BITS. And so I think, I know you're not sort of formally in this role, but I think of your role on the data governing board as being sort of like our point of contact to the world of BITS, which I will say just, you know, like in the past few months has also been incredibly helpful in a few areas. We had to develop an incident response plan. We've had questions on the configuration for SFTP that would have been, I think, much harder to get in. Both of those would have been much harder to pursue in the past, but I think that's sort of to Rachel's question. I think we've intentionally sort of like built the formal linkage with BITS through Bob, for which we're very grateful for his time and expertise for this. And that's, I think, you know, when we've got questions, we sort of route them to you, and you tell us how to navigate the BITS world if we haven't, when they're coming from, you know, P20 Win sort of questions rather than from the individual agencies. I don't know if that's sort of how I think of it. I just want to confirm if that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's hopefully what it's going to be, is that particularly the customer success folks are to give you that entry into it, because, you know, BITS went from 120 people to, you know, July 1st, let's say 700 people, you know, don't quote me on the number. That's going to be very difficult for anybody to try to figure out who's who in there. So that's why the customer success group was created. So great. Well, thanks, everybody.
Cool. That was a great discussion. Thanks, Bob. Very helpful. Thanks for everyone who asked questions. So the next item on the agenda are P21 data policies and processes. So this is something that we've been talking about pretty regularly over the last year or so. And we are, you know, we're at that next stage to start sharing draft policies with you all. So Coral's going to go over the data matching policy, but if we strongly encourage you to ask questions, provide feedback, let us know if anything needs to be clarified, improved, if it's missing something. So I'll turn it over to Coral.
Great, thank you. So to start off with, these policies and processes, they're recommended by the Institute for Educational Sciences and their statewide longitudinal data system grant program for effective data governance. Data policies are very high level. They include a policy statement and a policy purpose, which are both about 1 to 2 sentences, just giving an overall, you know, idea of what the policy is. And then the data process is more of a step-by-step detailed description of the specific tasks, individuals and roles, and who's responsible for each of those tasks. Also dependencies between tasks and agencies and any necessary timeframes. So I'm going to go ahead and first share the data matching policy. So this is the shorter document of the two. And we're just hoping to get, you know, any feedback you have, any ideas that you think should be included, anything that you think is missing, or anything that you think should be changed. So again, this is the data matching policy. So the purpose is just very short. So the purpose of this policy is to outline the P21 data matching process. This policy has been established to ensure consistency and replicability of the P21 data matching process. And then policy statement is the process of matching data between 2 or more data sets from P21 participating agencies will be completed by the P21 Data Integration Hub. The Data Integration Hub will transfer the resultant data to the data recipient following the completion of the data matching process. So is there anything on that you think should be changed or added? If not, we can move on to the data process.
I'll just have Coral transitions the screen. We can send these out afterwards to folks too, so you have like a little more time to grapple with it. But hopefully this is a taste at this. And part of the role for this group is developing and sort of approving these kinds of policies for the system. And like Coral said, it's a kind of direct recommendation from IES that we have and develop these kinds of policies. So starting off here.
Great. This is the data matching process. So again, this is the longer document of the two. So it includes what's the purpose again. So the purpose of this is the process of this process is to document the steps for data matching between P21 participating agencies to ensure consistency and replicability. So that matches the process that was used in the policy document. And then there's the who does this apply to? So the process applies to the data integration hubs and then all of the P21 participating agencies. It includes a set of definitions. These are terms that are used within the following section, which is the implementation section. And then the implementation section, which is I think where we should focus the most on your feedback and your thoughts on, who's involved in each step. So this was taken directly from Liam at the DOL. So this is the current data matching process that he uses and the steps that go through that process. So you guys can look over that and we can go over any specific steps that you think need clarification, or if there's anybody that's not included in a step that you think should be specifically called out, we can add that as well. So like step 1 and 2 is mostly about receiving the transmitted data. The transmission of data will likely be another process. So we're not going to go into a lot of detail on that within this document. And then 3 and 4 is preparing the data for the data matching process within Data Ladder, which is the software that Liam uses to complete data matching. Step 5 is the entire data matching process. So everything that goes into, selecting fields that are going to be used for data matching, and then completing data matching, discussing results with the data recipient and the participating agencies that were included in the data request, and then finishing that data matching process. And then steps 6, 7, and 8 are the conclusion of the data matching process and preparing the resultant data file to transmit to the data recipient. Are there any questions or comments?
Coral, this is Rachel. So we're working on methodologies within, like, this is a policy, but it also is sort of a method as well. And I'm just curious to know, did Liam write this? Patrick, your hand's raised. Did y'all work on it together? Because one of the things, like, I've written some data management instructions for a particular federal report that are pretty complex. So I'm just curious to know sort of like how these instructions come into play for something that we know is a little bit of alchemy and a little bit of experimentation. So you can like follow step 1, step 2, step 3, but it still could, have to take a detour. Because I would love to share what we have and also use what you're putting together, because like as you was saying earlier, the single points of failure, like one person knows how to do a thing, it scares me considerably. So we're trying to really expand who can do what within the agency by leaving behind like breadcrumbs or a manual or something.
Yeah, so these were developed with Liam. We had a meeting where he went through his process and he laid it out for me. They could be expanded upon to include more detail, which I think would be beneficial, since kind of the point of this document is that if someone knew where to step into the role, they would be able to complete the process without having any prior knowledge or experience. So I think they could use a little bit more expansion. So I will work with Liam to kind of develop them out further.
And there was no commentary on the complexity. I'm just glad something exists, but I do think that I struggled even. I've said, we need methods, we need documentation. And as I started to draft them myself, I realized, wow, there are shortcuts and steps I know about just because I've done the thing now multiple times. Could I hand this off to someone? And that's, there's never any time to road test that. So, or it's always like under the gun. So I appreciate the first effort, and I just want to help be in that conversation.
Patrick?
Yes. So to answer Rachel's question, no, I haven't seen any of this before, which is fine. Liam is actually able to do things on his own. What I was going to, my first reaction to this is I'm struck by the lack of a reference to data sharing agreements, and like, so things like the term results and data, I mean, that's always defined in the data sharing agreement. Like, what is it we're sending back and to whom? Because resultant data in some cases includes PII and sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, there's different confidentiality restrictions depending on what it is. And so, this is I understand where Rachel's coming from, and I think this is great. We obviously need this kind of documentation. But that was my first reaction, was that there are some terms on here that have very specific meaning in the context of a data sharing agreement. But when just sort of on this page, we all know what we're talking about when we look at it, but it isn't something that somebody else could pick up and understand what it is that they're supposed to do. So.
Yes. So there is a definition for resultant data in the definition section, but I think it's important to point out that, so this is just the first process that we've developed, and there'll be a set of policies and processes for probably most of the P20 win data request whole process. So they'll be able to refer to each other when we have them. So we'll be able to link the different documents within them. So say refer to the whatever in this section for more information, and then it'll take you to that process if it is related to the current process that you're in. That makes sense. So for there any other questions?
Coral, I just want to ask one general question back to the group. So I think, again, like this is sort of the first draft, we'll send this out, get some more comments and feedback. But to get a question for the group, is this the general sort of level of, as you can see at the top, eventually I think we'll be looking for approval from Data Governing Board for both the policy and the process, and to make sure that like this is what you're looking for. Is this sort of the general level of specificity, or maybe when you get this afterwards, think, is this a general level of specificity do you be looking for? We want to have these described in a way that is both specific enough to be useful, something that could be picked up by somebody who's unfamiliar with the process and understand it, but not so specific that you know, we're constantly modifying it for tiny changes. So I don't know, you can either react now or just think of that offline if the level of specificity is sort of at the right level for something that the board would review and approve. That's sort of our next, not immediate next step, but down the line. This will come back for your approval.
We welcome any and all feedback. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us, especially as we expand on the different policies and processes we develop. And if you have ideas for what needs to be developed, please share those as well. So I guess moving on to the next item. So we applied for and were awarded the AISP Equity and Practice Learning Community Grant, which is very exciting. It'll help us make sure that we are incorporating equity into our data processes and practice. But I'll let Scott or Susan jump in to talk more about the grant.
I'm just going to pull up the language here. This, I'll start, and then Susan, if you want to add anything in, please do so. Like Katie said, we applied for a grant probably a couple months ago. Thank you to, I know Jan's not here, but thank you to her for alerting us to this, I think, at a Data Governing Board meeting a few months ago. If there are grant opportunities that folks see, please, you know, bring them up and we will pursue them. Or you can pursue them on your own, but definitely this is a good opportunity. It's a modest grant, covers 2 years, and it relates to some of the objectives relate to P20 when the resident advisory board function, which is in the legal agreements, but we have not fully fleshed out, developing some tools to understand the potential impact of data requests in the review process, and then looking at ways we can increase standardization, particularly for demographic data. And then there's another obligation we have in the legal agreements to do sort of an annual report on efforts to promote equity through data integration. And so we bundled these together as what we're trying to get some support to implement these. So we have some of these are laid out in legal agreements. Some of them are just sort of goals that have come through different agencies. And we put them into the proposal and got are going to get some support for the next couple of years. I think if folks are interested in being more active participants in the learning community, please say so. Sort of the core team that put the proposal in was from OPM, Susan from DSS, and then the group from Office of Health Strategy who participated in the last meeting but are not sort of official members of P21 at this point. I don't know, Susan, if it's, I think I know particularly some of these are through kind of priorities at DSS. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to this.
Just simply that we're very excited to be participating in this, and I think this is an opportunity to really, you know, kind of riffing off of the IT optimization is almost kind of equity optimization, that some of this is are things that we really can share across agencies. Some of the particular areas that we noted for potential support having to do with privacy and equity impact assessment with data sharing. So I think that there are definitely some things that will be helpful and beneficial to us across multiple agencies. So I'm just very excited to be part of this endeavor. So.
Cool.
Awesome. So moving on. So the next item, so now we're on to the updates, and I know that we are in our last 10 minutes, so I'm aware that we have time. But so the next item on our agenda are the updates. So there was an evaluation of the ARPA funding included in the budget. I'm going to let Scott talk about this.
I'm going to screen share again. Like slides. This is a small, I just wanted to alert people to this. It doesn't sort of directly relate to P20, but I think you'll see some more activity in the governor's midterm adjustments to the budget, particularly for ARPA funding. We'd asked for an allocation to support evaluation and learning from the ARPA investments. Treasury has really emphasized making sure that states learn from these investments, that it's not just something that a lot of resources come in and we don't really know what happened afterwards. So they've put a lot of attention, a lot of resources on making sure that states build up capacity for evaluation, evidence building across agencies, across the subrecipients of the funds. And so we'd ask for some dedicated support for those functions through the midterm budget adjustments. And I think the way in which that would show up for P20 Win is we would be encouraged to route people to existing resources, so we're not reinventing the wheel. And I think we would see some more requests come in for evaluation of different ARPA investments. So that we have data requests where we're trying to learn about the impact of investments people are making through these funds, and we'd get some requests for P20 Win. There's a lot of ARPA investments in workforce. The largest one is the Career Connect program through Office of Workforce Strategy. That's the single biggest programmatic investment through ARPA. There's a lot of investments in higher education. I know CSDE has sort of developed a separate, I forget the acronym for this now, but an evaluation research group to coordinate on education, understanding the impact of some of the education investments through, I think, different federal funds. But so just alerting people that this is something I think in the next couple of years we'll start to see some more requests coming in to look at the impact of the ARPA investments. And I'm hopeful that this is a good way of making sure, again, that P20 Win is like a central sort of high priority resource that the state understands the value of.
So, any thoughts, questions?
Super exciting. How do you see the resources taking shape?
We'll have, I think, a couple positions coming on in the next couple of years to work on this. So that's the funding is really intended to support people. It's not for technology or something else. You just need people who kind of understand how the ARPA investments have been made and be able to connect the dots between those investments, the resources the state has for data, how to connect with applied researchers, third-party evaluators. I think that's what we kind of made the ask for. So we'll see. More to come soon. So there are also a lot of new ARPA investments this session, so we have to figure out what some of those are.
Cool. So next up is the learning agenda, if you want to put up the slides again. So we have seen some progress in our learning agenda. We've had a couple of new data requests, not totally submitted, but we're aware that they are coming in. So if you want to go to the next slide. So for request 18B, CSCU has been conducting the analysis and presented some outcomes and results to SDE. So we're seeing some good progress in that regard. Request 24, matching is progressing, and we will soon be incorporating OEC and SDE data into that match. Currently, it's just been public school data and wage data. So we will be making good progress on that. We've had discussions about developing a data request for the Roberta Willis Scholarship Program. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of great activity. If you want to go to the next slide. So the OWS data request is in progress. We are in the process of collecting data dictionaries that will help us inform what that request will involve. And then we have 2 HMIS data requests that are currently in review at the HMIS steering committee. So once those data sharing agreements are approved, we'll be able to move forward with those matches. Data request 17 is sort of on hold for the time being, but hopefully we will be able to move forward with that soon. And then the WestEd data sharing agreement is also in the process of being reviewed by WestEd. And then if you want to go to the next. So then we have a couple of requests that are in review. So we have a skills mismatch request, labor outcomes for UConn graduates, adult ed outcomes, which is primarily UConn OEC request. And then there is a new incoming request that will look at state-funded pre-K outcomes. So we have a lot coming in. We have a lot happening. It's very exciting. And a lot of moving parts. And if you are aware of any data requests that are in process, please let me know. And okay, so and then the next slide is the request calendar, basically the same thing we just went over. And then our next learning session is next Friday, and we will be in touch with the topic. So, are there any last thoughts, ideas, feedback? Now is your opportunity. If not, we can wrap up. It's 9:26. I will give you 4 whole minutes back to your Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Everybody. Yep.
Thank you.